The Dice Tower, episode 530, Essen, Spiel on Spiel.
The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. In today's show, Mandy and I talk about games we brought back from Essen and our experiences at the Spiel as first-timers. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandy Hutchinson. So we're going to just jump right into it, and we're going to talk about Essen as first-timers. We've got lots to talk about. So, of course,
so much.
First thing on the list, come on. Everybody's going to know what the first thing is. It's food. It's food. Come on.
It's got to be the food. Even though this is a podcast about board and card games, there were pretzels everywhere. How could we not talk about that?
What is it? Pretzels. There's croissant pretzels. You got your hard pretzels, your soft pretzels, your salted. Oh my goodness, I could go on forever. They were so delicious.
Basically, Germany turned out to be the land of carbohydrates for me, and I was in heaven. It was delightful.
Yeah, I think we were pretty popular at that one stand. It was like every time we would run, let's just get a couple of those, a cheese one and a regular one with the salt. So I think we were well known at that little booth.
And, I really liked it. I was surprised at how much like a kind of state fair Essen felt like to me for my context in the States, where you have all these food booths around in this massive, massive convention center. I mean, granted, you're under a roof, but it felt very state fairy to me. So, of course, there's also this booth, thank goodness they were open early in the morning for us, where they had waffles and crepes. And I love that they also kind of got to know us a little bit there, if nothing else, for our poor pronunciation. And watching this delightful young woman behind the counter try to educate us on how to say cinnamon sugar, like Zimtzucker.
No.
She was so patient.
She said it was like a sound like Zint, like it was like a T or something. Anyway, I'm probably butchering that. But yeah, I think I asked her every day how to pronounce that, but I did recognize confiture, which is basically the same in French. It's jam.
Thank goodness for French.
I know, right? Exactly.
And, one of the other things about Essen that obviously going to the Spiel, traveling halfway around the world, I was a little nervous. I just didn't know quite what to expect there. And everyone at that show that came by the Dice Tower booth, it was such an amazing, overwhelming experience to meet everybody. And I wasn't expecting that per se, and just how almost emotional it was for me. But what also surprised me, and the guys tried to warn us, Mandy, but I don't know if you were as surprised by this as I was, there was a never-ending parade of goodies from all the visitors at the Dice Tower booth. It was phenomenal because all of you wonderful listeners and viewers out there would come by and say hi and want photos with the guys or whatever. But there was always like offerings of candy and cookies. And I would go back just for that, quite frankly.
It's true. We never had a lack of food at the booth. Like, you'd open the cupboard, there were treats. You go in the back room, there were treats. I'm like, this is fantastic. I definitely need to come to Germany more often if this is, these are the things I'm going to receive. So thank you to everyone who, gave us some really delicious treats. I ate quite a bit of them.
Yeah, the stroopwafels are, Tom talked them up, and they certainly lived up to their hype. They're so amazing.
I agree. Now I'm spoiled, so I need to have more. So just, putting a call out there.
And, thinking about experiencing the Spiel from the perspective of us as first timers, and, I've listened to the guys talk about it for multiple years about their experiences. And I have to admit, it didn't quite prepare me for the sheer size of this. And Mandy, I'll be really interested to hear your perspective on it because you've attended Gen Con and I have not.
Right.
But for me, as somebody who's, the largest other shows I've really gone to are things like BGG Con, which is in the 3,000 person range, I think. I was overwhelmed. It was like going through airplane hangars worth of stands all dedicated to games. Just massive, amazing, different booths from all these publishers, tons I've heard of, a few I haven't heard of, and then the massive number of people all there for analog games. I've never seen anything like it. And it was impressive. At times it was intimidating. At times it was difficult to move around. But I loved it.
I definitely think I like Essen a little bit better. No, actually a lot better than Gen Con.
Really?
I know. And everyone says, really? I kid you not. And I know I talked to other people who had attended Gen Con and they have a similar feeling. I found that you were right. There were certain days where, like, I think it was like halls 1, 2, and 3. I avoided like the plague because it was just brutal trying to get through everyone. And it was really full. But honestly, that kind of felt like Gen Con a little bit. But overall, I just felt the vibe was different.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I found that was a big change for me. I did find there were like definitely a lot more people, but the vibe felt different. Even though there were a lot of people, I wasn't as stressed out. I feel like when I go to Gen Con, I get super stressed. The crowds, it's just a different feeling. And I know there's still crowds at both, but I don't know. I can't fully explain the feeling I had, but I felt a bit more comfortable.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there were points when, there are different numbered halls, like 1 through 9, and 1, 2, and 3 are definitely the biggest ones and the busiest. And there were definitely times especially on Saturday, it's funny because Mandy and I had this plan, like we are going to get everything done that we need to do. All of our shopping we're going to do Thursday and Friday so that we do not have to walk through the halls on Saturday because we had heard how crowded it got. And of course, I don't know. We failed pretty miserably at that.
Did you not see Tom's face every time we came back to the booth? He's like, "Oh, and what did you buy today?" He's like, "Oh my goodness, I told you, I warned you." Yeah, he was totally right. Every day we were getting something.
Yeah, and every day Tom was laughing at us a little bit too, which we probably deserved.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, trying to walk through the crowd, you were shuffling, you were inching along, and you were pressed right up against the back of some poor stranger in front of you, trying to get through there. And not my favorite kind of environment, but at the same time, to your point, Mandy, maybe everybody just dealt with it. Everybody had a big smile on their face and you just kind of wait your turn and shuffle along and you'll get there eventually. And so even though it was crowded and, quite the crush, it didn't feel negative.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's just really what it came down for me. Another highlight, though, was the escape room.
Yeah, and it's funny because Tom and Eric mentioned this in last episode, but neither of them got to do it.
Aha. See?
So we got one up on them.
Exactly. The Ludi, it was at Ludi Creations, right? The escape room. I've only done one in my entire life, so I was the newbie to that. And then I think you and Daryl Andrews, who we did it with, I think he's done them before.
Yeah, he's done a few before.
Yeah. So I thought it was good.
It was delightful. And what an amazing concept, because ultimately it was literally an escape room. It was probably, what do you think? Like an 8 by 8, even smaller, maybe a 6 by 6.
It was pretty small. Yeah.
Box. And you open the door and you go in there and it's decorated and stuff inside. And then they close the door and you're in this fairly small room trying to solve all these puzzles.
I thought we did well. I mean, we were getting there. Another 5 minutes. Okay, come on. Another 5 minutes. We would have solved that. Done.
Totally. Yeah. So it was a 10-minute escape room. It was right there in Ludi Creations booth. And what a great idea. Just from an experience point of view, it gave us a unique experience. It was a great marketing thing. I mean, of course you want to go and visit Ludi's booth and do the 10-minute escape room. And honestly, I've done, before that, I've done 7 escape rooms.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've done way more than me.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of experience with them. And I gotta say, it was a really well done room. We did not make it. We won't give any spoilers in case Ludi reuses it or whatever. But we didn't make it. But when they kind of showed us where we were kind of missing things, I didn't feel like it was a cheat. I kind of was like, oh, we should have figured that out. I got it.
Right. Like, I feel we were like on the, the cusp of like figuring it out. Like we were there. We just needed to take that extra step.
Yeah. And so you went into the room and it was decorated, it was painted with like stacks of Ludi Creations board games, so that was very thematic and cute, and there was this object in the middle, and it was a really full experience for a very tiny space and a very quick thing. And so that was definitely I'm glad I got to do it with you and Daryl Andrews, the game designer, who I guess he's well known for like Sagrada and Fantasy Baseball and things like that. Did it too. I wish we had won, but oh well.
Oh, and before we move on to anything else, I'm just going to throw this out there. I had missed out on Crisis on Kickstarter, and I was told Crisis will be coming back with a few little extras. Yahoo! If you missed it, now you'll be able to get it. Sorry, I had to throw that in before I forgot.
Oh, I know, and you were really hep on getting that game, so I know you're excited that they talking to Heracles over at Ludi Creations that you'll get your chance.
Yes, I think he was like, okay, we're doing it. Okay, I'm like, had to get that information out of him. So,
but let's be real. I mean, even if they had Crisis, what were you gonna do with another game, Mandy? Because Mandy and I were roommates, of course, at Essen, and I don't know. When you're traveling back, Tom ships games. He literally makes a pallet. He has so many games he's bringing back. He has a pallet that gets wrapped up and shipped as a pallet. But for you and me, Mandy, we're a little more low key,
right?
And so we're literally trying to figure out how to pack things in our suitcase, right?
Oh yeah.
So we did the thing where we're punching out all the games so we can throw away any extra weight and condense things as much as we can. And I don't know. I was thinking about how many hours did it take us to punch our games and nest them. I mean, it took us it took us 2 nights.
Yes.
And probably a combined 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
At least. And then not only that, we had a little girls' night with poor Dave's wife, Dave Luza. So Ilka was, hanging out with us and, oh, bless her. Thank you, Ilka, for that. And was helping us punch and nest games. So that was our girls' night. Before we left.
It took 3 of us to punch all of the games that we had purchased and picked up and get that all packed away. And that was an adventure. I miscalculated. And I ended up having to also, I thought I could do it without shipping a box. I brought massive suitcases, all this other thing. And I ended up having to ship a box back. And, I'm really looking forward to talking about all the games that we brought back from Essen, but I'm a doof. And in this exhausted packing, nesting, punching madness, when I separated pieces to go in the box, I wasn't thinking about how to keep things together based on what game they belonged to. I was thinking purely about weight. And so when I got home and after I slept for forever, I woke up and I realized I had a bunch of empty boxes or boxes with just like a board. And that all the components to these beautiful games were actually in a shipping box flying across the ocean separately. So thankfully I had enough games that, I got to play a bunch and we'll have lots to talk about. But darn it, waiting for a lot of games, like some of the ones you're talking about, Mandy.
Yep. It's taunting you.
Lessons learned.
Yeah, well, we won't even talk about how you had to slice and dice a few boxes. Ooh, that gathered a nice audience.
Yeah, it's funny how when you take a box knife to your board games, people have a reaction. Gamers don't like that very much. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't like it very much either. But you do what you gotta.
That's very true. So my luggage was a little bit heavy, and I actually brought extra luggage. Yeah. So next time, I think I need to read the fees a little more carefully. I did not know they charge you. Each airline charges you because I had to take 2 different airlines, even though, they have an agreement. They were very kind and, definitely helped me out a little bit there, but I know for next time. So may have to do some shipping next time.
Lessons learned. But, let's talk more about kind of our experiences. We have a few other favorite experiences that I think we want to talk about, but let's get into some of the games. I mean, we went to all this effort to get all these beautiful games home. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, let's talk games. All right, so now we're going to structure the show a little bit differently this week. We're really just going to be talking about, games that were on my pile that I said, hey, I'm going to play these and we're going to talk about them. So we're going to start with Nusfjord. And as you all know, this was my number one on the list when we did the Essen show with Tom and Eric. So Nusfjord is designed by Uwe Rosenberg. Artist is Patrick Soder. Published by Lookout Games and Mayfair Games. Plays 2 to 4 players, and I believe the cost is €53. So it's a worker placement, definitely an Uwe game. And in this game, you're trying to develop your harbor, surrounding landscape, enlarging your fleet of ships because we want to get those fish, creating new buildings, but you're competing, obviously, with other players. So I actually did not know that Nusfjord is a fishing village in Loften in northern Norway. That was new to me. So I don't know if you knew that, Suze, but
I had no idea.
So I learned something new. So in the game, it's kind of reminded me of Caverna a little bit here, where you have 3 workers that you're using on one of the boards to take action. So there are a lot of boards in this game. Let's start with that. Okay, well, we're going to talk about that afterward. But what you want to do in a turn is you're going to take turns placing your workers on the central board, which is where you take your actions, but there are limited actions on the board. So basically it'll say only one player can play here, but you know it's a space that lots of people are going to want to go to. So some of the actions are clearing forests on your board. So this is where you can create some room for some buildings that you might want to put, which give you benefits. But you have to remember, like some of Uwe's other games, there are negative points on the board that are not covered. So you want to try and get those covered before the end of the game. You also can buy a new ship or a cutter, and this is how you acquire more fish throughout the game, which is kind of like currency a little bit. You got to feed your people, your elders, and things like that. You can construct buildings, and as I mentioned earlier, you can, I guess, I don't know if you would hire or bring them aboard, a village elder, which is basically like another action space that you can use. However, you have to feed your elders, so you are taking away from fish that you would put, into your personal supply and feed your elders. It's an
Uwe game. Of course you have to feed things.
God, you got to feed things. You know all about it. So that action, so I'm going to start off by saying we played this game a little bit wrong. So we had to go through it again. I gave you an overview of some of the actions you can do in the game. Let me just finish this out before I'm just excited about it a little bit, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. You have shares as well that you can use to sell. So it's another way to get money, because like a Uwe game, money is really hard to get in this game. It's a little tight. And the action that I was talking about with the village elder, it's interesting because you have a banquet table and you need to have fish on these banquet tables before you can even take an elder. And, there are parts in the game where the elder can have 3 fish on it. When that happens, you end up having to remove some of those fish, 1 in your personal supply, and then 2 are going to general supply. So it's constant. You got to keep your fish flowing.
Like the elder just gets full and is like, no, I've had enough, and pushes the fish away.
Exactly.
All right.
That's it. I'm done. I'm like, I don't know how you can have too much cod, but that's a whole other story. So, what can I say? So we did play a few things wrong, that being one of them with how we were taking the elders. We were not taking the fish from the banquet table. We were not filling that out properly. And then on top of that, we were taking fish out of the reserve. In this game, at the end of a turn, things that are in your reserve move to your personal supply. You should only be using the things in your personal supply.
Oops.
Yes, because there's an action space that says to move things from your reserve to your personal supply. So if you're just using it out of your reserve, well, there is no need for that space. So as we're playing, I'm like, okay, this is super easy. Something is wrong.
Right.
It's an Uwe game. It should not be this easy. So we kind of reread the rules, figured it all out, played it again. Anyway, so I had to share that because it's really easy to miss. So overall, okay. I wouldn't put this as my number one if I had to do it all over again. I enjoyed it, but it was like a little bit more than Cottage Garden, less than Feast for Odin. So It had a lot of similar feel to it, like Caverna. And then, you had that kind of patchworky area, where you're trying to cover parts of your board, not to get the negative points, taking the actions with your discs. A lot of it was very, very Uwe, and I get that. It was on the lighter side. I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Okay.
I had some issues with the components. The plater boards, oh my goodness. There are some spaces, like when you're trying to put your shares on the board, you put more than one share, and you can't see, you're covering the entire space. It's spilling over the board. they could have spent, a little bit more and made that board a little bit bigger just to accommodate it, because you're now dealing with player boards. You've got separate boards for actions. Yeah. The rules, I also feel, could have been written a little bit differently, but that's potentially a subjective thing. I don't know. I know you haven't played this one yet.
No, my copy of Nusfjord, well, I have the box. And I think I have like the action board, but none of the actual pieces or anything. Those are in a box flying over from Germany. Honestly, from reading about Nusfjord before going to Essen, I think what you're saying aligns with my expectations. And I'm wondering if part of like your response to the game is about what you were expecting from it. Because for me, I am hoping Nusfjord is a lighter UVA game that kind of fits into that Glass Road territory for me, but with more of the worker placement mechanism core, right? Because Glass Road is that card action management thing going on. There's a lot, actually, what I would consider some player interaction on that one. Whereas like I'm really hoping Nusfjord, and what you're saying kind of sounds like it, is that worker placement core, but lighter, quicker.
Right. And that's the feeling. And it's funny, you mentioned Glass Road. A few listeners, and I were chatting, and they mentioned Glass Road. Even some coworkers who I just found out listen to the podcast, yay, had mentioned that they said it's like Glass Road. I have not played Glass Road. So
my gosh.
I know. I get that reaction all the time. So it's one that I probably need to add to the list. But they said this kind of sounded like it was in a similar vein.
It's certainly from depth and complexity and kind of time to play. That's what it sounds like. And I wonder if anybody's bringing Glass Road on the cruise, because I would love to play Glass Road with you.
Well, you can all teach me Glass Road. So overall, with Nusfjord, I liked it. It filled that spot for me where I have a lot of heavier Uwe games. I was not a huge fan of Cottage Garden. We'll save that for another podcast. But I definitely could play it as a lighter Uwe. But if you had something like Glass Road, I mean, I haven't played it, but it sounds like it may not be one that you necessarily need.
Fair enough. All right.
So there you go.
I have a game to talk about as well, of course. But first, I want to interject because talking about Uwe, one of the highlights for me at Essen was I got to meet Uwe Rosenberg. And, really, I think over the years, Uwe has definitely kind of basically risen to the position of my favorite designer, because I just love, like, Fields of Arla is one of my all-time favorite games, things like that. And that's one of the things, some of these Euro designers don't come to the shows in the States. And so going to Essen was really my first ever opportunity, maybe my only ever opportunity to meet these amazing designers. And meeting Uwe he was so sweet, and he was exhausted, and he apologized for his English not being great in that moment. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't speak any German. It's amazing that you're speaking to me in English at all. And I definitely had my geek out moment, and I got a photo with Uwe Rosenberg, which I will treasure forever. And I tried to keep my cool, but I don't know if I did, but I know Mandy.
Oh, goodness.
When we got the opportunity to meet Stefan Feld, I know personally, I just took 3 big steps backwards, because the energy that started to radiate off of you, Mandy, was like a force field.
So I did get a picture with Uwe. Little jealous of you, because you actually had like total conversation. I think he felt like maybe I was paparazzi, because I'm like, picture, and I just jumped in and took a picture. But yes, and we will talk about that when we get to Merlin, because I was
okay.
I was excited. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed. All right. Next up, I wanted to talk about a little card game that actually wasn't on my tops list for my top anticipation list, called Claim. And this is a 2-player trick-taking game. It's designed by Scott Alms, who is really well known for his work on the Tiny Epic series. The art is by Mihailo Dmitrievsky, and it's published by White Goblin. And, honestly, this is just a little €9 card game. I wasn't sure what to expect. And it's got a fantasy theme. So you basically have a deck of cards, and there are goblins, knights, dwarves, the undead, and doppelgangers. And they're kind of numbered like 0 through 9 or something like that. And it's a fairly standard trick-taking game. So what happens is that you shuffle up the cards and you deal them out. You deal out 13 cards to each player. And then you play a trick-taking game. What happens in the first round is you flip up one of the extra cards from the deck, and then you're basically playing a 2-card trick to win that card. So, if I lead and I play a 4 of dwarf, and then my opponent plays a 6 of dwarf, they get the card that was flipped up. And then I get the top card of the deck face down. I get to look at it, but my opponent doesn't know what it is. So we both basically, after a trick, we both end up with a new card. So we play through our entire hand, vying for the cards, one's revealed from the top of the deck, and the loser gets the blank one off the top of the deck. Great. So now we each have a new stack of 13 cards. And then you play another round of the game using those cards as your new hand. So you basically play a trick-taking game to play a trick-taking game. At first, we were kind of like, what? Really? Is this what's going on here? But I think it's actually quite clever, because as these cards are revealed, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, it's a 2 of dwarf. I could care less about that. I don't want it, right? So you're trying to slough your cards, because if you take it, that's going to be a weaker card in your hand for the next round. So there is some nice kind of twist in kind of vying for that card. And ultimately, I think in a 2-player trick-taking game, what I found is that not wanting to take the trick sometimes is a really important element to add tension.
Right.
And then to also add some intrigue to the game, each of these different factions have an ability associated with them. So if you play a knight after a goblin card, you win the trick, no matter what the values are, that kind of thing. So there's little twists with each faction. So you play the first round to get a hand to play the second round. And then you play the second round more like a normal trick-taking game, where whoever wins the trick takes those cards. And ultimately, the way you win the game is to have majority in the factions. So as you're taking, in that second round, as you're taking tricks, those go into your score pile. And when the game is over, you're flipping all those over and you're saying, okay, great. I have 3 dwarf cards. You have 2 dwarf cards. I have majority in dwarves, and you go through that. And your goal is to have majority in 3 of the 5 factions. And then that player wins. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, 2-player trick-taking feels relatively fresh and new in the hobby market.
Oh, yeah.
Another example of this is Fox in the Forest from Renegade Games by Josh Burgle. I adore Fox in the Forest. I absolutely love that game.
That is fantastic. I squealed with delight when I saw that it was a 2-player trick-taking, hence the reason this was rather attractive.
Yeah, and I will say right off the bat that this does not replace Fox in the Forest, but it definitely has a place in my collection, because I am a huge fan of trick-taking games. And once I understood the first round's impact on the second round and what you were fighting for in the second round for the actual scoring, I liked it. I liked that twist to it. I thought it was clever. I know that when we were talking to people at Essen, we heard that White Goblin is planning an expansion with new factions in the future. And I think that's awesome, because I definitely think there's a lot of room to expand with different abilities that would really turn the game on its head, while still keeping the core mechanisms. So,
right.
Honestly, if you are in a situation where you have 2 players often, Claim, and you like trick-taking games, Claim, I think, just slips right into that collection. It's a small box. It's a simple little card game. It's got fun art. And it's a really solid game design. I quite enjoyed it.
So this is one of the ones, is this one of the ones that Dan King had recommended to us? I think so.
I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah. So for those who, Dan King had mentioned this to us, that it was a really, really good one. And I know he likes these kinds of small card games as well. I know he plays a lot of them. And as soon as I saw trick taking 2-player, I always get worried. I always either it's going to get worried that it's like a ripoff of another game. Do you know what I mean? And is it going to add anything new? So, I mean, it sounds good, but if you're saying it doesn't replace Fox in the Forest, are we saying that we need it in our collection? Like we can have both, or you would choose one or the other?
Fox in the Forest relies much differently on the ability on each card and the way you balance that out. So they feel different to me. To be honest, they just feel like different games. So for me personally, I'm solid with owning both.
Okay, mine's still on the pile, so I think I'll have to attempt to play that within the next week or so. So, okay, I'm looking forward to that one then. 2-player trick-taking. Oh, look at that. We have something else in common. We like trick-taking games. Ha!
Ta-da!
So, my next one. Oh, I should have had this as one, but second we'll have to do. Merlin. So, Merlin was designed by Stefan Feld. And yes, I had a lovely chat with Mr. Feld, had a picture which I posted everywhere. Actually, Suzanne took the picture and posted it for me on Twitter and everywhere else. I was thrilled to meet him. And he is very tall in person. Very tall.
Oh, he's so tall. Yes.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. And I'm tall. And I looked up and I said, wow. Anyway, he was lovely, signed my game. I'm being very calm about it now. It was an inner excitement. So that was wonderful. A nice highlight. So the artist of Merlin is Dennis Lohausen, and the publisher is Queen Games. This game plays 2 to 4 players. The cost for this one, I'm not 100% because I don't even know it's going to be available in Canada. There was some talk about this potentially not coming to North America.
Ooh.
That's why they had the Kickstarter. That's a whole other thing. So I'm hoping it does come over. I would assume it'll probably run in the around $50 or $60 range, but we can confirm that at a later time. So in Merlin, we have some dice rolling, worker placement, set collection, area control a little bit. And in the game, like a Feld, lots of actions to be had. And, you're trying to beat out your opponents to have the most points. But in this game, you're using dice, but it has like the kind of rondelle type actions that you can use. And you have your knights that you can use, but you also have Merlin that you can move. So in the game, you have dice and you're rolling your dice and you're using them as actions on this circle. So like the rondelle. And your knights can only move clockwise. I'm hoping I'm getting this correctly. But Merlin, when you decide to move Merlin, he can be moved either direction.
Okay. Which
is nice. So it actually throws off other players as well when they want to move Merlin. Because they may want to think, oh, sorry, on my turn I moved him. So there's a specific die that is dedicated to moving Merlin. And you have different actions that you can take. You also have, what are they called? Oh, it just went right out of my head. Henchmen. There it is. So there are actions on the board where you can, for example, if you want to, acquire more resources in an area, then you would have a henchman that has like a little square that looks like a resource. So you need to use that specific henchman at a certain location on the board to get that specific resource. Again, depending on where you land on the rondelle based on the dice that you're using. So there are actions like that. You also have actions where you can take over a territory because when we do scoring in rounds 2, 4, and 6, a Feld, we do scoring throughout the game. Everyone knows this. When you're having a certain territory, you want to have the largest kind of territory because those count for a lot of points throughout the game as well as game end. But depending on the resource you use will depend on the type of territory that you kind of claim with your manor. So that's another action that you can take. You can also have influence in certain areas of the board, which again will give you points in the interim scoring. You want to have the most because then whoever else has tokens there, you're going to count those as points as well. Oh my goodness, I feel like there's so many things. It's a Feld, so there's lots happening here.
Right.
You have mission cards that you can complete. You can also obtain flags from the different areas of the board, and those can give you additional actions that you can use. So sometimes flipping a die and things like that. It can be a little mean because sometimes your henchmen can be replaced by somebody else's. If they need that action spot, yours come back. You want them off the board because you get points for them being out on the board. So a Feld, lots and lots of things happening here. Also, Merlin's, you have these henchmen. Sorry, not the henchmen. I think the henchmen are the ones you're sending out. But you have these, I think they're traders. I might be incorrect on that name. But the traders are something that gets scored when the scoring round. They're negative points, and you need to ward them off with shields So you want to make sure that you're acquiring the right shields from certain parts of the board. If you don't, negative points, but you have Excalibur, if you can acquire that during the game to help you get rid of these terrible people and not lose points. Yahoo. So all in all, I mean, to win the game, obviously, it's whoever has the most points, and you get that through territories, mission cards, and so forth. Okay, here we go. So the best way for me to describe this game, it's like, when you're going out on a date, and it's fine, it's great. Then you need to decide if you want to see that person again.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we're not quite there. This is one of those things where I need to have several dates before I decide I can commit. So in this case, I liked the game. The iconography was clear. The rulebook was clear. A lot of people are not fans that dice mitigate your actions. Let me tell you something about dice games. I know people's like, it's luck. And yeah, well, guess what? You also have the opportunity in this game to make sure you're acquiring the flags and other things that can help assist your dice actions. So yes, you do have some say to a certain degree in how your dice can be used. So that requires better planning on your part. So I play the game with a couple people who are Feld fans. So obviously myself and another friend, we were first and second because we're familiar with the mechanics and how it works. But there are people who are not dice people. And that was one of the biggest complaints, was that they felt there was a lot of luck. So my response to that is then you just have to do better planning with actions that can help change or alter your dice. I know, right? I'm a little sassy today. So I did feel there was something missing in the base game. So to be fair, I have not played yet with the variants or the added bits. I'm trying to get through a lot of games, but I'd like to go back and play that so I can revisit this. The base game was fun. I liked it. It's pretty. It's nice to look at. I mean, the mechanics were familiar to me. I just felt it was missing something. And I can't pinpoint what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, looking at from the outside, just looking at the board, I mean, it's a hard board to consume visually without really understanding what's going on. And I think that's true of a lot of games. But it's got that big round layout, and it's visually very, very busy. But it's a Feld game, so what do you expect? Just listening to people talk about it, listening to you talk. I mean, honestly, for you and a Feld, this is pretty lukewarm.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you're willing to go on a second date, but I think that's because, like, again, to extend this odd analogy a little bit further, it's like you're a friend you really, really trust is like, no, really, it's a great guy. It's a great guy. You should give him another chance, right? So you're like, okay, I'll give it, it's like, it's a Feld, right? So you want to give it another shot because it's a Feld. But I mean, you're pretty lukewarm on this. I have definitely seen online some mixed reactions that fall in line with what you're saying. But I'm still excited to try it, but I did not purchase it at Essen, and I didn't back the Kickstarter, so I'm not sure when I'll get the chance to. But I definitely still sounds like something I would try.
No, I definitely think you should try it. I will play it again. I mean, I do have to try the other variants to the game. I definitely want to bring that in because I think that could definitely change how I feel about it. I liked it. We had fun playing it. It just, it just didn't blow my mind. I think that's, it's a Feld and I have high expectations. So I expect it to be like, holy woly, fireworks. I didn't quite get that. So that's where I am. I feel like there's something missing. I can't quite pinpoint what it was because there was nothing mechanically wrong with the game. It's just missing that extra punch.
All right, there you go, Merlin.
Yeah.
Well, next up, I want to talk about a game that was not on my radar at all until Tom talked about it in our Essen preview show, and that is Otys, published by Libelud and Pearl Games. And so the designer here is Claude Lucchini, and the artist, who definitely deserves praise, is Paul Mayferon. And the cover is gorgeous. It's this amazing undersea scene, and all the components, have that kind of oceanic, kind of steampunky or post-apocalyptic oceanic theme. That's kind of what it looks like. It looks in kind of a dystopia future, but Otys is an action selection and resource collection game. Because ultimately the way you get your primary points is by turning in resources or for there's 4 different colors of cubes. I'm very bad with theme. There's 4 different colors of cubes that you turn in to fulfill different contracts. So maybe a contract requires, 2 green cubes and a blue cube, or maybe it has, 3 cubes that are gray that says 111. And what that's really saying is you can turn in, 3 cubes as long as they're all 3 different colors, right? So you fulfill those contracts, and so that's really the primary way that you get points. But the way you get all this is where it gets a little more interesting. So the action selection comes thematically in these divers that you have. I don't remember how many divers there are, but there's a fair number of them. I mean, there's probably like 10 at least. Mm-hmm. And each diver has a different ability. So some of the divers are just going to give you a resource. So when you activate them, you're just going to get a blue cube or a white cube or whatever. And some of them let you upgrade divers. Some of them let you manipulate some of your assistants and things like that. So they're all pretty basic actions, and each one of them can be upgraded to either a better or a cheaper action. The way that you get to take these actions is where it gets interesting. So you have this board, your player board, that kind of represents your dive zone. And component-wise, this game is really lush. You have these boards, and they are multi-layered cardboard so that you have some depth, some grooves in it where you can slide pieces around and they kind of stay in place. Mm-hmm. And so you have this column of divers, all these tiles sit in a long column. And then there are these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these little action tiles that sit next to them and in their own little grooves. And you can literally, to take the action, slide your little number tile over to nudge your diver over, and that indicates that you are activating them. Mm-hmm. And these are all thematically based on dive levels. The deeper you go, right, you're activating. So, you activate your level 5 diver, who's all the way at the bottom. You slide over the 5 token. That triggers what's called a sponsor ability, because there's a whole other central board with these other things going on. So again, you can, get the ability to upgrade something or take a diver's action twice or get a battery or whatever, right? So you slide over your action token or your dive level, and then you use whatever diver that action token is next to. And then that token goes to the bottom of the board. It goes away, so you cannot use it again for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then the diver, you get to take advantage of the diver, and then the diver has to go back up for air, of course. So then the diver gets moved all the way back up to the top of the column, and all the other divers slide down. So now you have a new person at number 5 and all that other thing. So you have this kind of rotating, sliding diver system that you can manage and plan for. And that action selection is quite clever and engaging. And I really, really liked it. Now, as you're using these tokens, you only have 5 tokens, right? So I've already used my 5 tile. So I can't take that action again until I refresh all of my actions. So I can, pick the 1 or the 2 or whatever. But the way that you refresh your actions is that there's a hacker at the bottom of your board. And when your action tiles, as you use them, go down to the bottom, fill up that hacker space, then you get to refresh them. And of course, one of the actions you can do is sliding that hacker over so that your tiles can refresh more quickly. There are also batteries and a mechanic. And the mechanic sets how deep or how many levels you can manipulate your divers. And the battery is what lets you do that. So let's say I really want to use my diver again in the future and I don't want them to move. I can spend a battery, if I have one, to let them stay underwater. Or if, let's say, there's a diver way up high that I really want to use soon, I can use a battery, and according to my mechanic level, I can slide my diver down and adjust the line that way. So I really like that because you've got this long line of divers. I really like that they have that mechanism in there for you to manipulate that line and kind of get more control over it. So that's, the core of Otys is that you are moving divers around, taking actions, collecting resources, trading them in for contracts. The other little hitch in this game is everything is based on dive level. So if I take an action and I collect a resource, that resource goes on that level of the board. So if there's a contract for 1 white and 1 green resource, I actually have to have a white and green resource on a single level of my dive track. I have to have both on a 4 or both on level 2. Can't have them spread out. So that adds another layer of planning as you're figuring out, where do you take these actions? Where do those divers have to be when you choose to activate them? How do you have to manipulate that action line? And I think that that's very, very clever. So overall, I really, really, really enjoyed Otys. It's a beautiful game. I love that diver action mechanism, manipulating that line, planning ahead, figuring out things. There's a lot, there's other little nuances to the game I'm not going to go into. Now, I will say some of my play group, a couple people felt like they were tossing turns away when they couldn't make their line quite get to the place where they wanted it to be. I guess I can understand that, but I didn't feel that way. I felt differently in that I always felt like at least I got something for my actions. And if I didn't, I felt like I had planned poorly, and that was on me. I should have taken batteries that time, or, I counted wrong and my diver is on level 4 when I thought they'd be on level 3, and that kind of thing. And I felt like I had some control over that, so I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. Definitely had, some players, I think you could get bogged down in analysis paralysis. I think there is a risk of that with that game. My play group tends to play pretty quickly, so I didn't feel that too much, but I think that's a risk with this game. And I talked about the beautiful boards and the beautiful art. I will also say Otys is one of those games. Mandy, if you recall, we were in our hotel room in Essen and we were brutal. Every insert was getting tossed out. Every punch board, right? It was a cardboard massacre. Well, with Otys, I opened the box. I saw the beautiful insert with all that luscious art. And I'm like, oh, well. And I took it out. And I realized as I was taking it, I'm like, wait a minute, something's going on here. And in point of fact, Otys's insert, it's cardboard and it's beautifully printed, but it's very, very functional because it's got one of the most clever things I've ever seen with a cardboard insert. It actually has a component tray built in with a lid that is closed through Velcro. It's got a little Velcro closure on it. So it's a very functional cardboard insert and it's pretty. So I carefully tucked my insert back in, and Otys is a game that made it back home intact with its insert because it was just too good to lose.
I did keep my insert as well, so yes.
You had to. It was too good.
Very good.
I will say one of my issues with this game, I mean, the warning of analysis paralysis and kind of, some of my playgroup's feedback is my boards are warped a little bit. So both the central board, it's just got a little bit of a bow to it. And perhaps more importantly, my player boards have a little bit of a warp to it. And I can imagine as you're layering and you're gluing, cut cardboard on top of each other, I can even see how it can get warped. The boards are beautifully designed. They are notched to hold cards. They are notched to hold these tokens and let them all slide. The double layer of cardboard is actually designed so that you have those hacker and mechanic tokens. They actually have a little bit of a slide track that they're designed to move along. Right. And that design is thoughtful and it's brilliant. And it would work beautifully if the boards were flat. Because the boards are warped, they twisted a little. The tokens didn't, especially those mechanic and things, they didn't slide in the tracks they were meant to and things like that. So, ultimately it's a mild annoyance. It didn't impact my enjoyment of the game. I was just kind of bummed because I could see how beautifully they were supposed to work and it just didn't end up being that way. I don't know if that's a pervasive problem. I don't know if that was just an issue with my copy, but it's something I noticed that was kind of a bummer. But for that diver action selection track, for the beauty of the game, I think it plays in about 90 minutes with 3 players. I really liked it, and that is Otys.
Well, that's good to know because I this game for me was, all the cool kids are buying it, so I'm gonna buy one too. I knew nothing about this game. I know Tom had mentioned it. I heard a couple other people mentioned it. I just picked it up, so it was a blind buy for me. So does it have? I feel like is it like a heavier Oceanus? Or
no, it does. It feels pretty different from Oceanus, to be honest. I mean, other than thematically,
right?
I don't.
And when I say that, there were some things we were talking about the different levels and then putting resources. Now, I'm not saying it's the same game at all. That is not what I'm implying. But just to give people kind of a point of
or of reference, sure,
right.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It feels very much like it feels like a hardcore action selection game.
Okay,
so there you go.
Yeah, well, there you go. So maybe I should escalate that to the top of the pile.
Yeah, give it a try.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm on a heavy games kick for some reason now, which is normally what I play, but I really didn't need to put them back to back, but I did it. So the next game that I'm going to talk about is Pulsar 2849 or 2849, however you'd like to pronounce it. The designer, Vladimir Suchi, and the artist is Soren Medding, and the publisher is Czech Games Edition. 2 to 4 players, and it costs approximately €40. So I'm going to start off by saying, yes, that's right. It's a space game. So anybody who knows me knows I don't like space games. Well, I played this one and we'll talk about whether I liked it or not. So the game mechanisms in this one is space exploration, dice rolling, drafting. So in Pulsar, each player gets to choose dice. So on a turn, we're drafting dice and you're choosing 2. And you're going to use these dice to buy actions during the action phase. The choice of the dice, it's going to affect, your player's position. So there are 2 tracks in this game that you have to pay attention to, the initiative track and the engineering track. So the initiative track is turn order, and the engineering track is how you are able to gain tech cubes, which you can use to take another action with the remaining dice after the drafting has happened. So really important to pay attention to that because it also affects how much it's going to cost you on those tracks when you take dice further away. So it's kind of hard to explain, but when you see the board, basically, you don't want to be too far along that track because, you want points at the end of the game and you want to go, I'm thinking you want to go first every so often. So tech cubes are used in the game, like I said, to take an extra action. So that was very useful for me. So those tech cubes were fantastic, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. You also have a bonus die that you can get from some of the actions in the game. Something I didn't probably use as much as I should have, but it's available. So when these dice are placed, they're placed depending on the roll. If it's a 3, it's placed in a 3 space. If it's a 4, and so forth. And this is where it comes to talking about how far it is on the track. Some of those higher value dice you may want, but it's going to cost you more in order to get it. So I'm not doing a very good job explaining it. I'm trying to picture it in my head. It's a little convoluted, but let's just say the tracks are important. You can do a few actions on your turn. So some things that you can do, you can add spaceship to your fleet. So you have spaceship. So you're traversing the space universe and you're trying to do some exploration. So flying through, you want to explore new planets, which are going to give you more actions. You're also trying to tag pulsars. So they almost look like big starbursts on the board. And you're trying to put your rings on these kind of starbursts. And you want to do that to kind of claim them. And you're going to put these other tokens in there, which are points. And these points are going to add up for you because we do scoring. I know it kind of sounds weird. So it almost looks like a planet ring, and then you have these tokens that you need to acquire on a different type of action, which you're going to place in them, and then you kind of need to develop to flip them so you can get points for the end of the game and throughout the game. So that's tagging a pulsar. It's an interesting name, and hence the title. You want to advance on the tech track, something I did poorly in this game, but definitely something you want to do because it provides a lot of benefits for you. Again, you're using your dice to do these actions. You also want to do upgrades on your own HQ board. I did take advantage of this, but again, it gives you other things that are going to help you throughout the game. And there are end game objectives where, completing your HQ board, you're going to get points for that. Being really high on the tech board, you're going to get points for that. Exploring and discovering lots of planets, you're going to get points for that. Someone in one of the players I played with, he made all of his points on exploring planets because he had the most explored planets. So his little tokens were on all these planets. He got tons of points for things like that. So the game ends. There's a track. So every round, it moves up. And obviously when it reaches the end of that track, the game is over. So I'm not going into everything in this game. There are a lot of elements going on. The first time I played this game, I played a prototype. And it was at, I think was it Origins potentially? Anyway, I was terrible at it then. I'm terrible at it now. But can I just say, it's one of those games where you can't stop thinking about it.
Huh.
So yeah, I'm awful, but I want to play it again and figure out, okay, what can I do better? Or maybe I need to work on my technology. Like, it was constantly in my mind that I need to try this game again. So I was excited about this game. I know, space theme and all. I was quite excited. I'm trying to get into more of this space exploration. So I really like the way it was done. Yes, it has dice, so maybe I know that's something that I obviously seem to like with a space theme, but I did like the way that it was used here. And if you did it properly, it would work in your favor. I did not use them as well as I could have, like the selections that I made. But now again, I can think in the future how I would like to change that strategy. So like I said, someone did it, who I played with, use this exploration to gain a ton of points, but then really didn't have many points in technology, and I feel suffered a little bit for that reason. So you do have to, you can focus, I think, on one aspect, but you should touch on a few of the others to get some of those endgame points, or you're practically just giving them away to somebody else. So I think it's something that you have to pay attention to. I think the replayability is high, because you can attempt a variety of strategies to gain points. And this is exactly coming back to what I was just talking about. So like I said, I didn't use the technology. Next game I play, maybe I need to amp that up in conjunction with my exploration and other things. So for me, I really enjoy the fact that this game, even though it has dice, there are tons of ways that you can use them, but it's not pure luck. You do actually have to have some strategy. So I don't know. This game is actually really, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, wow, there's so many things that I could talk about this game. It's hard to, you visually have to see it to understand it. So I'm just giving you tidbits of what some of the actions are in this game, but I have to tell you, I really liked it.
Yeah, you seem pretty amped about it. Like just listening to you talk and kind of, you seem very into it, especially for a person that doesn't like space games. Wow. Yeah, you seem very up on this game.
I literally was like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like my kind of game. After the first play, I'm like, oh boy, I don't know. Like I was just getting crushed. And usually that kind of stuff doesn't bother me, but I was like, I'm obviously just not, I'm missing something. But after I played it, it made me want to go back and play it again, which I did. And I still really liked it.
That's awesome. I love it. And that was?
Yes. That is, oh, hold on. I always forget the number. So it's Pulsar 2849. I don't know why I keep getting it mixed up with Kepler. I want to say the wrong number. So Pulsar 2849.
I'm really excited to talk about this next one because so far, honestly, of all things, this is a little bit of a surprise to me. And this is CV Pocket. So this is a card version of a game that you may have heard of before called CV, which is published by Grana. This is designed by Philip Molunsky, and the artist is Piotr Socha. And honestly, it was a little 10 euro card game that I really picked up because I liked CV. And I'm like, all right, CV Pocket, let's do it, right? So CV Pocket, thematically, it's a game about building your life story or your CV. And it's all card based. And it's basically kind of a drafting and, set collection game, I guess. Ultimately, you're just going to build up a row of cards in front of you. And that is your life's document. And the cards have icons that represent things like happiness or sadness, knowledge, relationships, etc., etc. And they all score differently. And that's kind of where most of the game is. So, for example, relationship, there's 4 different types of relationships, love, family, business, that kind of thing. And relationships score in pairs. So if you have, for every 2 of an icon that you have that matches, you get points. For happiness, if you have the most happiness, you get points. For sadness, if you have the least sadness, you get points. Thematically, so on and so forth. Cards also have these other icons on them that look like vehicles. There's a bike, a car, and a plane, and those are travel values, and they correspond to a number on the card, 1, 2, or 3. And that's kind of the extra twist in this game, because the way you get these cards is you lay out a 3x5 grid of them. And then for your first card, you just take any of the ones from the bottom row of any of those columns. Great. But then the travel number on that card determines the row you can select from in the next pick. So if I take a card that has a travel value of 2 or a car on it, that means when it comes back to my turn, I can only take cards from the second row from those columns. And that element of planning is actually quite nice. You know, oh, I really want that card, but it only has a travel value of 1, and I really want those cards that are higher up. Or actually, the more likely scenario is that I really want that card, but it has a travel value of 3, and I can't be guaranteed there will be cards at that level by the time it comes back to me. And that adds just a nice little twist to this kind of draft to get those cards. And what happens is that you're going to pick these cards and you're going to keep on going, and they kind of slide down to fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. But the tableau does not replenish until there's only 4 cards left. And then the tableau replenishes, and you play through basically you just play through the deck.
Right.
And the deck is stacked depending on how many players you have. So if you have more players, you get more cards. So it's kind of scalable that way. So you go through the draft, you pick up these cards, you lay them all out in front of you, and then at the end of the game, you just count up your icons. There's a score pad included, so you just figure out, how many points you get for happiness and sadness and relationships, and there you have it. It plays incredibly quickly. It's like, honestly, 10, 15 minutes, you can crank out a 4-player game of this, but it's fun, and it's oddly satisfying. The art of CV was always, I found, charming. Some people don't like it, but I really do enjoy it. It's kind of quirky and fun. And part of the fun of CV was always kind of building up this funky little life story for yourself. And that carries over into the card game. As you're laying these cards out in front of you, you get these funny life stories. You go on a lot of vacations, or you relocate a lot, or you got a promotion, or things like that. You find yourself kind of immersing into this odd little story you're building. Calculating those icons, picking which direction you want to go in, because you can't necessarily do it all. Some of the cards do have extra special scoring abilities on them that you have to pay attention to. Honestly, I gotta say, I think CV Pocket replaces CV in my collection. CV is a lovely little dice game, but I think CV gives me CV Pocket gives me all the things I like about CV in a super tight, quick little portable game, and I quite enjoy it. I really hope Passport, I think, has been bringing over Grana games lately. I really hope they pick this one up too, because I definitely recommend CV Pocket. I've played it, I don't know, 5 times since Essen, just because it's that quick and easy to put on the table. It's a real delight.
I still haven't played it. It's
dope.
On the second pile. Got a pile going there. But I have not played the original CV, so I don't know how does it compare to, for example, like, is it a Pursuit of Happiness type game, or not as complex? I know there's dice in the original one. This one's the card version. Like, are they related?
So I have not played Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, you haven't?
I know.
Okay, I thought you had.
No, I hadn't.
Okay.
But based on what I know of Pursuit of Happiness, I think CV is a little bit lighter. It's very much kind of a Yahtzee mechanism where you're collecting on the dice to get these different cards and things like that. So it's lighter.
Okay, so yeah, no, this is one actually I just, again, blind buy. I swear I have a problem.
Yes, you do.
What was I supposed to do? You called. You're like, oh, CV, this, what is it? Oh my goodness.
Pocket.
Thank you. I'm trying to do your voice, and then I'm forgetting what I'm saying at the same time. So I'm trying to make fun of you and not doing it very well.
Wah.
Yeah, it is a total want moment. But yes, thank you for that, because you're the one who was like, it's so, you need to get it. So yes, it's a blind buy. But now you seem very excited about it, so I feel like it might be one that I need to try. Maybe like a lunchtime game, show the coworkers.
Oh, it's a perfect lunchtime game. It
Nice.
plays so quickly and easily. You can teach this to anyone. It would be perfect for that.
Oh, awesome. So that was CV Pocket. I got it that time.
You got it.
So, yes, I have been very serious this podcast. Jeez Louise, all these
So
heavy
heavy.
games. I know, but we're going to lighten it up a little bit. Well, sort of. I'm picking a lighter game, Battlefold. And I know Suzanne has mentioned this game before. Designed by Dave Choi, Johan Go. Artist is Vincent Dutré. The publisher is Happy Baobab. Players, it's 2 to 4 players, and it costs about €30. I think they had a special price at the con, but I think it retails for about that. So in this game, first of all, you open the box, you're like, oh, I see cloth. And your role is your warrior, assassin, magician, or archer, and your handkerchief, that would be the more appropriate term. You have one that matches the character that you choose, and they have fighting powers. So, for example, the warrior has cross-shaped attack range, so something that's good for that person is to stay in their position. And this is things that are kind of listed for them to do. And it's pictured, so you can see how you can move your character. So when you start the game, so it's really straightforward. So anybody who's played Shiba Inu House will kind of be familiar with this kind of getting there quick, getting it done. So you're like, what is she talking about? You're going to be using your handkerchief. It has pictures of, crystals and, weapons and all sorts of treasures and things like that. A mission card is revealed. And all of the players look at this mission card, and you want to do this as quickly as possible. You have to fold your handkerchief to match the picture. So it has to be in the same kind of shape, but it also has to show all the icons and only those icons that are on the card. You want to be the fastest one to do this because you want to grab that one token. So in a 4-player game, there were 3 of these tokens out. So if I finish mine first, grab the 1. The next person grabs a 2, the third. The 4th person doesn't get one if they're too slow, which means they will not be able to get the bonuses off of the cloth that they folded. They're really just moving their character on the board. And you want to move, so you're able to attack. So you can move and attack, but you can't do anything additional if you did not grab one of those numbers. So you can actually, what I like about this game here is you can be eliminated. You turn into a ghost. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Suze, because I know you've played this as well. If you end up, all your health is gone, you're not completely out. You're eliminated, quote unquote, but your board turns and you become a ghost.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And you can still, I believe you can still play an attack if you're a ghost, but it's a bit different.
Right. So when you turn into a ghost, you can actually still win the game, but you don't attack, you gain spirit points. It's kind of like...
That's it.
If you touch, now you're kind of, I don't know, haunting the other players. I don't know, but you can collect spirit points instead of attacking other players, and you can win that way or try to win that way.
Right. So yeah, I did not. But yes, sorry, that was the other condition, or basically being the last player standing, I'm assuming is the yeah, that's right. So I did not win. However, I enjoyed this game. My counterparts did not enjoy it at all. This is and we kind of talked about this. This is a kind of specialized game. Like, certain people are going to like it. I'm sorry. It just did not appeal to them. I thought it maybe was the speed factor. No, they found the handkerchief action awkward. Personally, I found it got my mind working. Okay, how do I fold this to get it? Because all of our handkerchiefs are different. They're not all laid out with the same, you may have a treasure chest in the corner over here, but it may be in the middle here. It really makes you think. I thought it was a very cool mechanic. It was different. You're thinking outside the box of how to play an attack game with a handkerchief. That's super cool and fun. Again, if you're not into speed type games, this may not be one for you. I like things that are different, so I'm willing to try it, and I had a lot of fun doing it. We had a lot of laughs. Not going to be for everybody. I just found it was a game that really works the mind, and I liked the concept. I also like the fact that you're not eliminated. I'm going to say it, I really despise games that eliminate people and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs and have nothing to do. That's not fun. It's not fun for, the people playing because you feel bad, and it's not fun for the person who was eliminated. So I'm glad that they did not have a complete elimination in this game. They found a way to incorporate where that player is still able to play and come back and win. So for me, this is a win. I enjoyed it, but I do understand it will not be for everyone.
Sure. What did you think of the art from Vincent Dutrait?
I thought it was great. I really liked it. And actually, I didn't know it was Vincent Dutrait at first. I was like, it's really nice. I like the colors. And oh, hello. And then I saw who it was. I'm like, it made sense. Did you enjoy it or did you not like it?
No, I really liked it. And I think that it stood out for me because it thematically, oftentimes I see Vincent Dutrait producing more traditional board game art, in more traditional settings, like the, trading in the Mediterranean kind of thing, or the Italian Renaissance.
Right.
So I thought it was really fun to get this fantasy themed thing where you have the assassin cat in a hood and the dwarf and things. Yeah. I just thought it was kind of cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really like this. I totally get that there are people that wouldn't like it. I think that folding mechanism is incredibly cool. I love that puzzling nature to it. I cannot believe, I can't believe you're calling it a handkerchief. That just seems so it's your battle handkerchief. Are you kidding me? It's my battle hanky. I mean, that's essentially what we've gone to here, Mandy. Is that it's my battle hanky?
I felt cloth felt so like dirty, so I was like, handkerchief sounds a bit more upscale.
We gotta come up with. I gotta look at the rules and see what they call it.
I swear they call it a handkerchief. I am not kidding. That is what it's called.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that. I'm looking it up after we're done recording, because I can't. I don't know if I completely hate or completely love the idea of calling it a battle hanky.
I could have said like a satin serviette. I thought handkerchief would sound so much better.
This is going downhill. But I'm glad you enjoyed Battlefold. It's just the type of game that I like. And to what you were saying, it's different.
Right.
It's unique. And I love different and unique.
I'm different and unique, so I like things that are different and unique. So, oftentimes people don't warm up to those things right away. But, give it a shot, and you never know. You might surprise yourself.
It just might.
So that's Battlefold.
All right, I think we'll wind down with this last one. Altiplano.
Ooh.
Altiplano definitely was high on my anticipation list for Essen. This is Rainer Stockhausen's kind of big follow-up to Orleans. This is a bag or pool building game. It features art by Clemens Franz, and it's published by DLP over in Europe, and that's who I purchased it from.
Yep.
But we found out just before recording this podcast that Renegade Games has actually picked it up for wider, like, North American distribution, and I think that is hugely exciting. I tried to elbow Scott Gata, who owns Renegade Games, for any like secrets or hints about anything that they make. He said, we are looking at the components.
Yeah.
Because I know some people are kind of excited about the idea of a deluxe version or an upscaled version, because Altiplano from DLP comes with like cardboard tokens, which are perfectly lovely and fine.
Right.
But, some people are like, oh, maybe, wood tokens. All Renegade would say, said, we're looking at
they
it.
will. They'll jazz it up. Oh, they will.
Whatever that means. But anyway, so if you're interested in Altiplano, the good news, and you're in North America, the good news is it should be easier for you to get in the relatively near future. So Altiplano, bag building, pool building. If you've played Orleans, it will help you understand this game. I will say we struggled with the rules a little bit, and what made it click for us was realizing, associating it with actions in Orleans. So we knew Orleans. So then when we were reading the rules, like, okay, well, this is what this is in Orleans, the equivalent. And that really helped us through. So, maybe the rule book needs a little bit of love. Or if you've played Orleans, hopefully, that will help you pick up on it. But basically, you are building a bag or a pool of tokens. And in this case, tokens are different resources, like fish or rocks or cloth, etc. And you have your own action board, and you place tokens as you draw them out of your bag. You get X number of tokens, and you select which action spots you want to take. So a lot of these action spots are actually just about converting your tokens into other tokens, or using your tokens to buy other tokens is more accurate. So maybe I turn in a fish and a food, and I get a cloth or something like that. Or, if I turn in a food and a llama, and I get some wool, that kind of thing. So you're placing the tokens. You're kind of setting up your actions by placing them all out on the board at once, and then you go around and you take your turns. Then, as you use the tokens, they go into a cart, and the components in this game are great. You actually get these little 3D boxes that you assemble, and that's where you trash your tokens. Yeah, they're adorable.
Oh, cute.
And you put your tokens into that cart, and then when you can't draw any more from the bag, you dump your cart into your bag and then continue to draw. And that is a very standard deck building and very standard pool building mechanism. What is interesting, it is very different from Orleans in a very important way. Because in Orleans, as you use tokens, they go back in your bag. So you could pull a token that you just used, right? And it changes your odds significantly. And I thought that was interesting. So you're going to use these tokens, and you're going to get more tokens, different actions. There are cards that you can get that adjust scoring, so you can get cards that make your fish more valuable or whatever. There are also upgrade tiles that you can get. So these tiles actually may be the only way that you can access some different resources. So maybe you get the tile that lets you get cacao, or the tile that lets you get llamas, or what have you. So you can purchase those and amend them to your board. You can arrange it so you can pull more tokens each turn, that kind of thing. Another little twist in Altiplano is the actions are location based. So when you see a picture of it, you actually have the board, quote unquote, is actually a series of little modular boards that look like little islands. They're adorable. And in order to take a market action, like exchanging goods for gold, you actually have to be, you have a little meeple. Your meeple actually has to be on the market tile. And then you can do all the market actions you want. But hey, what if you also want to do a mountain action in your turn? Well, you have to plan your board in such a way that you can take your market actions, travel to the mountain, and then take your mountain actions. So traveling is very important. You have these little carts, and you can spend food to move extra far or take an extra movement action. It's not difficult to get around, but it is critical. And planning for enough movement, because it doesn't carry over. And planning for enough movement actions so that you can hit all the spots you need to is really, really important, and a nice little element to the game. There is also a warehouse. And so you're collecting all these tokens, you're using them to take actions, but at some point you actually want to move them over to a warehouse, which is an action. And the warehouse is clever in that once you set a token type in a row, that's the only token type that can go in there. So, one of my players mentioned it reminds them a little bit of the resource management in Above and Below, and I agree with that. And what's funny is that resource management element is one of my favorite things in Above and Below.
Really?
So yeah. So I actually really enjoyed that in Altiplano as well, where maybe I want to move the more, like, I want to try to get the easier to get resources lower, because then the harder to get resources go higher up the track, and the higher up the track you go, the more points you'll eventually get, kind of thing. So that there is an element of strategy to figuring out what order and the timing of moving things over to your warehouse. And of course, as you move things over to a warehouse, you're actually thinning your pool, increasing your odds of getting the other tokens that are remaining in your bag. So it all comes together very, very nicely. And I got to say, I thoroughly enjoy Altiplano. Although it's interesting, my playgroup really enjoyed it. But my internet friends are much more mixed on it. So some of the feedback I'm hearing is that it's longer. Like, we are playing 3 and 4 player games of Altiplano in 90 to 120 minutes.
Okay.
Right? So 2 hours or less is where we're timing out at, which I think feels fine for this game. Yeah. Because to me, turns feel very snappy because you're kind of simultaneously planning your turns. There's not a ton of downtime. But I'm hearing reports of people taking like 4 hours to play a 3-player game. And I have no idea what's going on there. I guess if you're all super analysis paralysis prone, but that just seems ridiculous to me, to be honest. I'm not sure why that's happening. Our games
I've been hearing the same thing.
Right?
Yeah, no, I've legitimately exactly what you said, that it's being longer, it's feeling longer. But I also heard it was like more streamlined, but like than Orléans, but I'm not sure. I feel like there are differences.
Well, in Orléans, you have that city board, where you're traveling across roads and picking up resource tokens.
Right.
And that's another thing. There is a bit of setup in there because there are like 15 different types of tokens in this game, and they all have to go on specific spots. But if you've played Orléans, there's this massive city board that you have to randomly seed resources on, and then you have to recollect all the extra. The setup in Orléans, I have to admit, is one of my least favorite things about that game.
Yeah.
Setup for Altiplano is quicker. Yeah. There's still a bit of it, but it is most definitely quicker and easier, especially if you kind of organize your tokens when you put it away. A lot of people are talking like Altiplano actually feels less random than Orléans, which may also be contributing to playtime. Maybe people are getting into AP and really are trying to strategize it out. I'm not, to be honest, I don't know what to say about that. It's definitely kind of multiplayer solitaire. There's not a lot of player interaction. You can share spaces. It's not like you can block somebody out from a location or anything like that.
Mm.
But for a pool building game, I think the art from Clemens Franz is really delightful. I like this South American setting. I think it has some charm. It feels a little fresh. It's got quicker setup. It's got that interesting thing where you're discarding tokens into a discard before it refreshes into your bag.
Huh.
I really, really like Altiplano. I'm not going to say it fires Orleans yet. They're different.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they end up being different enough, I'm going to have to play both another time to get a real sense of that. But Altiplano, I think, is a very worthy sibling game to Orleans. I really, really like it.
Again, this is one that's on the pile. I knew you were going to be talking about it, so I wanted you to take lead on that. But it's one that I'm excited to play because I really did enjoy Orleans. I did not have the deluxe version, so now I'm curious to see how it plays. People think that's not a big deal. It is, because the first time I played Orleans, for example, I played it with the deluxe, and then I now own Orleans, but it's with just the cardboard tokens. I'm sorry, it's a different feel. So
really,
yeah, it is. It makes a difference, like especially when you're pulling things out of bags and even the board, like with the resources. Maybe that's just me being picky, but I was going to ask you how that affects Altiplano. Not having these upgraded components, is that a huge thing? Or
it's interesting because I do have the deluxe Orleans. And,
oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. And I like it, but I perfectly enjoyed Altiplano with standard bits. I guess arguably if it had wooden tokens instead, I would like that. But then you get wooden tokens with stickers, and I'm kind of meh on stickers on tokens sometimes like that. So I don't know. I liked it the way it is. I enjoyed it for what it was. And I mean, you have to keep in mind too, price point wise, I think we paid, because you and I bought it together.
Yeah.
It sold out day one at Essen, and I'm so glad we kind of prioritized buying it.
Absolutely.
I think we bought it for €55, which is like...
It was definitely in that price point.
That's like $60 US.
Yeah, which is like 75 Canadian.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it, but I mean, if you upgrade this thing, it's going to be a pretty expensive game. And I think there's a fine balance there.
Okay, now that's fair. I always have to ask about the components because there are some people who that is actually a deal breaker for some people.
Sure.
If they can't or not able to do that. But regarding gameplay, I hear a lot of the comparison to Orleans. A lot of people saying it's like a streamlined version. A lot of the randomness is taken out. I know you had touched on a few of these things, but I did hear that people were saying that the game was stretched out a bit longer than it probably needed to be. Again, I haven't played it yet, so I'll be able to test that theory actually on the coming weekend as we're recording this, because I really want to get to the table and see if what everyone's saying is correct. So looking forward to it. I really like that whole, bag pulling element. So
it's a fun game. Yeah. And I like that. I like the deck building, pool building mechanism overall anyhow. But, we've talked about a lot of games, and we have barely cracked into everything that we brought home. But I know I've seen a couple people interested in something that happened in our live show at Essen. So, we're going to be talking about games that we picked up at Essen for a while, because we picked up a lot. So we'll be playing them for a while. Let's maybe talk about a few more of our favorite moments at Essen before we wrap up the show.
Sounds good.
Well, before we dive into a couple of our, closing thoughts on the Spiel, Mandy, I know there are, with everything that I brought back, I know I still missed a few games that I was really hoping to get, or games that just slipped under my radar that I heard about later. What about you? I know of at least one that was sold out when we went to try to pick it up for you.
Yeah, so I actually had a few that I was at least wanting to play, and it was just either too busy or we were busy, never got to it. So just going to quickly list them off, and then you have to tell me and everyone else what yours are. So Alien Artifacts, and I went over there twice. They were just so busy, but I really wanted to play this after you and Tom, and I think potentially maybe Eric had mentioned this game. So Alien Artifacts was one, didn't get to see.
But the portal booth was packed. packed.
It was jam-packed. So
They were demoing that thing nonstop.
Yes, and people were loving it, which is fantastic for Portal. I wanted to play it. So one that it's added to my list to play, Loot Island.
Yeah.
And I know that this is on your list as well. And
they sold out. I mean, I know on the last, I'm pretty sure, because I think on Sunday when I went to go grab a copy, because I finally remembered it and I realized it's a smaller box, I was like, okay, maybe I can fit it. And they had sold out.
Ah, shoot. Yeah. So, because it looks totally different than their other games like Signore and so forth. But it looked different altogether, and I really wanted to try it. So actually, I didn't even know it sold out. So there you go. That was one on my list. I think another one we had talked about was L'Arbre, so the tree. I don't remember who the publisher is for this one, but it was when we had spoken with him. We were going to go back and get a demo and just never made it back to the table. So it looked interesting, and I wanted to try it. Didn't make it.
Yeah, that one looked great because when you look at it, the box has a pretty painting of a tree, whatever.
Right.
But when we looked at it in this press event that they have where like everybody just lays their games out and kind of just stands there and lets you talk to them if they want to, you're actually building a tree and attaching like little branches and different kinds of leaves to it. So just visually it looked super cool, but I'm sorry I missed out on that one too.
Yeah, I don't know. And there was a whole tree theme going, like the Christmas tree one that Tom had mentioned as well. Right. I know. Anyway, that's a whole other story because I actually was going to back that when it came out, and then I saw it there. I didn't have a chance to actually look at it. I don't even remember the premise of that one. That was the one. Is that the one with the lights or? Oh,
no, that wasn't. That wasn't the tree. That may have been the Christmas tree game.
The Christmas tree one is what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So not this one though. But Kalimala was another one.
Ugh, that looks so good.
It did. I loved some of the mechanics he was showing. I'm like, ooh, that's different. Ooh, that's interesting. Especially when they're talking about like moving the discs, and depending on where your placement is on the disc will depend on the type, like the actions you're taking and if everybody else can take those actions. I don't know. It had some really neat mechanics.
Yeah, it looked like it was kind of a medium heavyweight Euro with that interesting action selection.
Right.
Disc stacking thing.
And to me, I was like, ooh, like it was different. So, and I heard a lot of people talk about it. Again, we saw a quick demo, didn't get to play it. That made me a little sad. Habitats. Yeah, that actually stung a little bit. I like held off so I could get it at Essen, and sold out. I know you have this.
Yeah, I own it and I really like it. And you and I talked about it a lot. You're like, oh, Suze, do I want that? I'm like,
yeah,
it's a tile laying game. It's got a fun theme. And right, you went there and like, didn't he sell the last copy just like 30 minutes before you got there?
Yeah, I was like mad and sad. I'm like, it's not his fault. He's going to sell the game. But I was so angry. I'm like, no, there should have been a copy for me. So, and alas, I'll have to wait on that one because I don't think it's available in Canada, or it would be difficult to get. Noria. So Noria was on my list. However, I figured this is a game that's with Stronghold. I can get it when I come back to North America. So definitely one I still definitely want to get. Haven't played it, don't care. Liked the idea. I know you really liked it. You had talked about it.
Yeah. But I had the same mindset. And I think that as we were, oh my gosh, as we were that's what it came down to. We were prioritizing what we were picking up there versus what, and I think we both had already heard that Stronghold was bringing it over to the North America. So we knew if we just had a little bit of patience, we would get it.
Right.
But waiting stinks.
Darn right, 'cause I want it right now. So, yeah, definitely waiting patiently, but I need to play it. Petrichor was another one. Oh, for goodness sakes. I tried tracking this game down the entire time. Finally get a message from Dave Lutza. Oh, they have some. I go, yeah, we're sold out. Oh, for goodness sakes. So I was a little upset because I didn't think that we were going to get this one in Canada. It's coming. Again, it's one of those things I'll just have to be patient for.
And, I think Petrichor, I could be wrong, but Tom and Eric talked a little bit about this on last episode, but one of the interesting things is a lot of publishers this year seem to be hit by German customs for one reason or another. And I know Renegade Games had their games held up. I know Pandasaurus had their games held up. I know poor Gray Fox Games never got their games in their booth, which is just tragic on so many levels. And I think Petrichor was one of those as well. And the stories are when people saw the cart with the boxes, the cases labeled petrichor on the side. Literally, people started following the cart to the booth because they knew. So I don't know if we had any shot in it at all of getting a copy because it sounds like they were sold out before they even got them out of the boxes.
Oh, wow. And you know what? I don't even know what I'm complaining about because where was I going to put it? Literally, everything was packed to the hilt. So you know what? It was a blessing in disguise that I wasn't able to get it. So, well, we can wait for that one. Favalis? I know this is one we had been... Did I say that right? Favalis? Favalis?
I think so.
Anyway, I think it's... Yeah, we're going to go with that. So this is one that I had seen online. The art was fantastic on it. Who was the artist? That was...
it's Kwanchai Moria.
Kwanchai Moria. Oh, his stuff's so good.
Yep.
And this was no exception. So this is one that I really wanted to try. Again, busy. Didn't have a chance to go. So this is one I think I can also acquire here. Heaven and Ale. And this is one we were talking about. I saw everybody carrying this game around. It wasn't even on my radar. And then I was like, oh, is it good? Maybe I should try it. So this is one I think I would have liked to have actually played there to see if I would have liked to buy it or, take another look at it. So definitely one that I'm going to look at again.
I honestly would consider that one probably our biggest miss. I don't know, maybe Alien Artifacts, because Heaven and Ale, I know a lot of people love that beer theme. I don't drink beer. So whatever. Great. And it's got a punny name, and I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. But I didn't know until it was too late that it's a Michael Kiesling game.
Yes,
exactly. And
exactly.
I love Michael Kiesling game design, so I am definitely kicking myself for not picking that one up. I hope it has distribution because I definitely want to get that one.
I feel that it does. It's not coming to me right now, but I think we might be all right on that one. So what about you? I know you had a few too that you really were looking forward to.
Well, it's funny because you and I spent so much time together. Like we palled around, just kind of like, what is it that like when you cling to the ship in the sea or something? Because we're both newbies there, right? And it was kind of overwhelming. So a lot of the ones on your list were on my list. Let's see. The Bloody Inn expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So Bloody Inn is one of those games that I didn't think I had any interest in until I kind of was put in a position where I had to play it.
Right.
And I ended up really liking it. The theme is so odd and whatever, but the gameplay ended up being delightful. And they had an expansion, and you and I were at a store and all the English versions had sold out. They only had German and French.
Yes.
So really hoping to get that one. Dice Age is a little game I know very little bit about. It's from a Japanese publisher, and it's got a really cute mastodon on the cover, and it looks like a fun kind of dice placement game. So kind of bummed I didn't manage to buy a copy of that. And then Matterhorn. There is a publisher that doesn't have maybe wide awareness called Helvetique.
Okay.
And what's killing me is I actually picked up some of their games, a game called Hippo and a game called Forest and a game called Bandito. And these are tiny, tiny box games that are about the size of Oink game boxes. They're very stylish. They're light, but quite enjoyable and beautiful. And Matterhorn was this interesting little thing where you're climbing a mountain using dice to determine your movement. And I was kind of out of budget, and it was just a slightly larger box. It's not a big box, but it was just slightly larger, and I was out of space, so I passed, not realizing I really had no way of getting this game now.
Oh, shoot.
Because they don't have U.S. distribution, or they have one, but they don't have Matterhorn.
Right.
And so I'm really kicking myself for not picking that one up. So fingers crossed that one will come in. And, it's funny because I say I was out of budget, and I wasn't.
Right.
That one of the interesting things about Essen that I didn't quite anticipate, maybe I should have, was cash.
Yeah.
I knew that I had been warned ahead of time that credit cards were not going to be reliable there because most of the vendors can't use them because of German rules around whether or not you're allowed to have a credit card account there, which is totally fine. My problem came in is that we were randomly running into issues like there aren't many cash machines around. They were broken, or I forgot my PIN and almost locked myself out of my debit card kind of things. So I wasn't out of budget, but certainly not anticipating the difficulty of getting euros while I was at the fair. That was a good lesson learned for me for next year.
Well, I didn't know they put a limit. I legitimately thought, oh my goodness, my bank account's been drained. Where's all my money? I was freaking out. And then to come to find out you were limited taking, what was it, like 150 euro at a time or 300 euro a day or something. Anyway, I almost lost my mind because I thought, great, I'm stuck here and I have no cash, but they just put limitations on how much you can take out, which might not have been a bad thing for me because I tend to spend way too much money anyway. But yes, you are definitely right on the whole cash thing.
So, we definitely picked up a lot of games. We still missed out on a few games. And c'est la vie. I think it was, such an honor and really privileged to go. And as much as we talk about all these wonderful, wonderful games, the Dice Tower is very much about the people who play those games. And as much as I might like Altiplano or CV Pocket, or, you might enjoy Nusfjord, I think you and I would both agree that the best experiences we had, the best thing to come out of the Spiel were the live show.
Yeah.
And that game night, right?
Yeah, I have to say, and even prior to the live show, speaking to a lot of, viewers and listeners to the Dice Tower, fantastic people. The live show was, I have to say, one of my major, major highlights, just because the crowd is so reactive, which is fantastic, there's a lot of, ooh, ah, laughing, and it's exciting and it makes you feel like people are involved. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect.
That crowd was so wonderful. I just listening to Tom and Eric, apparently the crowd at Gen Con is larger simply because of room size, right? You're limited in the room we had, but the room was completely packed with people. And you're right, Mandy, it felt like everybody was part of it. Everybody was engaged and just there with you. And it was incredibly entertaining and fun. And, we Dave Luza and his wife Ilka put on a pretty cool, fun improv show, which I know people have tried to listen to the live show. It's a little hard to hear. It is a rough audio setup there. We're not, we can't bring our own equipment and we don't have any control over the setup. And it is a shame because Dave and Ilka were hilarious. And
they were great.
If you have a chance, it's worth investing to try to hear bits because it was impressive. And then we did this game show, right?
Oh,
and you can go, I'm not going to recap the game show because you can go back and listen, but it was very entertaining for me, even though our team lost horribly. But Mandy, I know we've had a few people ask the critical question because it kind of works like Family Feud, right? And y'all answered a poll and then the top answers on the board and then the teams take turns trying to guess the answers that are on the board. The twist is you don't want the number one answer because those points go to the other team. All right, fine. Well, the question, was, what's the one color you never want to play in a game? And surprisingly to me, the number one answer was yellow, which I think Mandy guessed.
I know.
Thereby losing us points.
Okay, listen, I was 2 for 2, though. 2 really amazing ones, and, 2 were number 1. What can I say?
And all that's fine and dandy. But if you've listened to the live show, the question was asked, what is an acceptable reason, or what is a reason you would give for losing a game? Now,
pause there, because I know people are it could be what I thought.
And, the answers on the board were things like, it's my first time playing, or you taught it wrong.
Now, keep in mind, I didn't know these things until after.
So, we're kibitzing a little bit before answers are given, and Mandy leans over to me, and she says, leaving the game on the roof of your car. And I almost, I had to interrupt the show. I was so floored by that answer. I had to interrupt the show, which you'll hear. It was hilarious because, of course, that's not at all... But you're right, man. It's funny because it totally makes sense. But the point of bringing all this and rehashing it, my apologies if you've listened to it so you know this, because people want to know, Mandy, what is the game you left on the roof of your car and lost?
So, yes, I received many, hugs, and what game was it? People were really upset for me. Okay, so let me give you a little background here. I was in a hurry. I was chatting with someone. I was loading some things into my car. Oh, boy. So, the game that I decided to leave on my car, I just forgot about it, was Caverna.
Ugh.
And it was like a custom insert, the whole bit. It was pretty sweet. And we all know how expensive and heavy Caverna is. So driving along, and I live pretty close to the highway. Yeah, I'm about maybe 30 seconds onto the highway. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, I forgot the game. I get off at the next exit. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting to find on the top of my car because there was nothing.
Oh, that's tragic.
It was traumatizing. So I legitimately had to buy another copy, another insert. We won't even talk about how much that cost me. Yeah, costly mistake, but rather hilarious.
And totally worth every darn penny for the high comedy of that moment in the game show, because that was a singular experience, Mandy.
Yeah, well, hey, if it made everyone laugh and they felt good about it, well, maybe not so good that I lost the game, but it made people laugh. Hey, I'm all about it. I'll take one for the team.
So thank you to everybody who attended the live show. It was y'all made up the best audience. It was quite the experience, and it was amazing. The only other thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up is the other event that we had in the evening that we got to hang out with people, and that was the game night with Dice and Mystics. And Tom and Eric already kind of described it, and so I won't go into it again, where we got to go off-site and just play games. But again, I just want to take a moment in the show to tell anybody who might be listening that was there, thank you. The event was amazing. It was relaxed. It was entertaining. We got to play games. We got to meet listeners and viewers and hang out with you just as people and gamers. And it was just an absolute highlight. And I got to, just the people at the table that I was primarily hanging out were just an absolute delight. And I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Really enjoyed it. As you said, people were fantastic. Everyone, hosting. It was another major highlight for all of us, I think, at Essen.
And no better way to kind of wrap it up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, everybody. That is, I'm sure, Essen stories will come up in the future, but thanks for hanging out with Mandy and I as we relived our Spiel experiences. I certainly hope that is not the last Spiel that I get to attend with you, Mandy.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. We absolutely have to do this again.
And thanks to everybody who stopped by, who said hi, and who provided cookies and candy, because my new jean size thanks you. Next episode is episode 531. This will be recorded at PAX Unplugged. Tom, Eric, and maybe a few other Dice Tower crew will be on hand to share their experiences at this brand new convention. And Mandy and I will be back for episode 532 in a few weeks. So we will see you then.
See you then. Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vazel Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvazel.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. So now we're ready for 2 truths and a lie. So I'll head up first. I'll start with I graduated cum laude from university. I'm still driving my first car, and I'm an avid bird watcher. If you guess that I am an avid bird watcher, as the lie, you are correct. I do love birds, but I'm definitely not, I need to brush up on my skills if I wanted to know all about them. So I know. So Suze, what about you?
Well, I totally believe that you graduated with honors. I have no problems believing that whatsoever. But what did you get your degree in?
So I actually have 3. So I have a...
Oh my goodness.
I know, I'm a little smarty pants. Ha, who knew? Criminology, sociology, and education. So very happy to say that I'm sort of using them. But yeah, there you go.
And how long you're still driving your first car?
Yeah.
Because you just
I'm
bought
gonna
it
run
like
that
last month?
sucker. No, I've had my car for a very long time. I hate driving so much. So I will run that car right into the ground and then I will buy a new one. Cars are not a great investment. So yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
What about you?
All right. From last episode, my statements were I've dropped 2 cell phones in the toilet. I've flushed my keys down the toilet. And I've attended 5 Coldplay concerts. And I don't know why I went with that theme and how poor Coldplay got involved in that. But the lie is I've attended 5 Coldplay concerts. I have attended no Coldplay concerts. Thank you very much. But
do you have an obsession with the toilet?
No. I'm just very clumsy because I have dropped 2 cell phones into a toilet, not at the same time. And I actually did flush my entire massive keyring down a toilet once, and that was quite the thing. So there you go. All right.
I thought I was the only one who had. Anyway, we won't go there. Okay.
All right, Mandy. What's new for this week?
All right, new for this week. Here we go. I was part of The Lion King on Broadway. I work in mental health and wellness. My legs crashed through several sheets of glass.
Oh, my goodness. All right. And for me, I am afraid of needles. I am afraid of zombies. And I am afraid of clowns.
Oh, interesting.
And only one of those is a lie.
All right. So join us next week to find out which ones are the lies.